What's up, people? Welcome to another episode of the Day One Mentality Podcast, where we talk about the number one thing that has the ability to make or break your dream, your mentality. My name is D. I'm a pilot. And today, standing in for the awesome, amazing, steady athlete, we have Aileron Abbey for the first ever time on the podcast. So welcome to you. Now, Aileron Abbey, before we get into that, this is episode 22, and we've got a few things to talk about today, so I'm looking forward to that. But before we do, let's get to know Aileron Abbey a little bit more. So, Abbey,
Yes.
who are ya? Who are ya? Who are ya? Who are ya?
Just a girl obsessed with planes.
There you go. There you go. Yeah. You know, like sometimes I discuss aviation with aviation people, and I find myself in a weird position because usually I speak to people who are not interested in aviation, and I say, like, this is my dream, and I find myself talking to aviation people and like, this is my dream, and I'm like, and I'm sure it's yours and yours and yours and theirs. So it's like in the company of people who actually share the same dream, and I don't feel like an outsider. So yeah, that's awesome to hear. So tell me, where did your obsession start?
Well, Mum took me on holiday a lot as a kid. 3-4 times a year. I was very lucky. So I was always around the airport. Loved the airport and flying more than holiday. So started from there.
Nice. And tell us, for people who don't know what you do, because you're kind of linked with a few different, I don't know if you're allowed to say, but a few different organizations, companies. You do quite a bit. So just tell us a bit more about what you do before we kind of get into it, because I know for some of our audience, this will be the first time that they get to see you. So you're studying at the moment, for one.
Yeah, okay. So I will be starting my third year of aviation engineering in September. And through my degree course, I was part of a Beyond Barriers program. And I met some great people through that. And now I'm an ambassador for a company called Aeroshift. That's how I crossed over to working with some professionals. And I'm an ambassador for the future generation, the next generation, trying to encourage more people into the industry. And I recently became a police ambassador. So that's all in the works. So yeah, my schedule's a bit hectic at the moment.
I can imagine. And you do a bit of writing, don't you?
Yes, I do some articles for Aeroshift once a month. There should be an article coming out in a week and a half. So.
Yeah. And do you have a blog?
No, that's another thing of being partnered with Aeroshift. They're giving me the platform to write my articles. Wow. So that's really good of them. We're helping each other out with our goals. So works both ways.
Nice. So yeah, Steady Athlete is off running Activikids today.
Brilliant.
So yeah, wishing you all the success, mister, and hopefully we can hear about how that's going. It's always nice to kind of go from idea to actually seeing action. I like that. So today we have Abby stepping in for Mo. Next week, well, maybe I'll tell you guys at the end of the episode what's going to be happening, but next week is another really interesting twist in the Day One Mentality podcast life or world. So with that said, what's the week been like?
Mine, busy.
Yeah.
busy.
Working on any projects?
Yeah, trying to get it all done in time.
Mm-hmm.
How about you?
Yeah, it's been a crazy weeks. Highs, lows, madness. But one of the highlights was I had a little visit to BA hangar, and we also tried out their flight sims. So I say flight sims. What was it? I think it was the A320. So I did a takeoff landing in the A320 simulator. So that was quite fun. It was nice to visit BA, hear a bit more about, their approach, and how they work, and yeah, meeting all the guys that we went with. So I was with young air pilots guys, and guys and girls. So yeah, it was really, really inspiring visit, I would say.
Sure, it was. Was it a fixed base simulator or like
It
remote?
was, yeah, because essentially there was quite a few. There was like 10 of us. So yeah, you can't really be in a moving simulator because, yeah, bodies thrown around and
Yeah.
people suing and stuff like that, and yeah, bad press for a BA. So yeah, it was a fixed simulator where we could like all watch each other and like see who
Oh,
was like buttering the landings and who was like veering off the runway. But in general, it's quite positive. We like clapped for each other, regardless of how bad or how hard the landing was. So that was
gosh.
quite good. Huh?
How did you perform?
How did I perform? Well, as a perfectionist, not as well as I hoped,
Yeah.
but good enough. Like my passengers would have survived. Let's put it that way. Maybe
Good.
minor injuries, but generally they would have been okay. So
That's good to know, and also not enough.
yeah. But then again, I've never flown an A320 before, so there you go. Because it's just like generally the principles apply, but then it's kind of like, well, if you're used to driving, it's kind of like driving a smaller car than a bigger car. Like the dimensions are different. The point where you start to flare might be slightly different. You kind of look for slightly different cues. Just like parking a bigger car, you have to look for different cues than like parking a smaller car. So yeah, but it was very insightful. Good fun. Good fun. And yeah, I took a couple of friends up as well who'd never been well, they've never experienced general aviation, so I took them up this week. Really good friends that I've known for years. Knew me before I started this journey of trying to become a pilot. So it's quite nice to kind of show them where I've got to now.
Hmm.
Yeah. But yeah. Like any other flight, there was always interesting parts to it. Yeah.
Was
Yeah.
everything working on the plane this time?
This time it was always working. Thank you very much. Yeah, so the plane was perfectly fine. But we went to Elstree, which is a short runway, so that was quite fun, like doing an approach. It was like 2 mile final, 2,000 feet above ground, like literally glided the whole way in, pretty much just to, yeah, with 30 degrees of flap just to get down. So that was fun. I was quite happy with that, landing uphill runway. And then coming back to North Weald, it was just crazy. So there's like four aircrafts trying to land
Oh,
in quite a tight space in the circuit. So yeah, I ended up doing the go around twice.
twice.
Just yeah. Literally on one of my downwinds, I heard an aircraft called downwind ahead of me. I could see them. I heard another aircraft called downwind. I couldn't see them, and I called downwind. And then the other aircraft said, I was in Alpha India, and they're like, Golf Alpha India, what's your altitude? I was like, 1,300, descending for 1,200. They was like, okay, look to your right and below. And there it was, an aircraft at my like 4 o'clock, probably like 400 feet below. So it's like Cessna 152, I think it was. So it's like, okay, cool. How do we navigate this? So there's an aircraft ahead, there's one below, behind me in the circuit. All three of us are on the downwind.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like had to have my wits about me. And obviously I'm flying with these guys who's never been in general aviation before. So they're getting like a baptism of fire here, like seeing me obviously super focused, like, all right, talent, crew resource management. Everyone's looking out, everyone's trying to point out any aircraft they see, you know. And meanwhile, I have to focus on fly the plane, fly the plane, fly the plane, right?
Mm.
And we do the first go around because there's a plane on the runway. Go around, come back. Then I do a second go around, come back. Then on the third one, I'm like, do you know what? We've been the thing about flying the Piper is you have to switch the tanks, right?
Mm.
Whereas on the Cessnas, you can just set it on both, and like the fuel cross feeds, and you're fine. So yeah, on the third one, I was like, do you know what? If we're going around again, I'm switching these tanks, right?
Yeah.
Anyways, we didn't go around. We landed, came off, and parked up, and then I checked the tanks. We literally got to the end of that tank.
Wow. Cutting it fine.
Yeah. Got to the end of literally. So yeah, the good thing is I was aware of that threat, but yeah, in the spirit of like always evaluating every single flight, I think I would have wanted to make that decision a little bit earlier. Well, a fair bit earlier. But it's good that I was definitely aware of it. But anyways, that ties in with the BA thing, because one of the things they were talking about is like there is no perfect sector, there is no perfection and not making mistakes, but it's about really continuous development and like reviewing things, evaluating and learning the lessons and carrying it forward. So I have seen people use timers, so I think next time I'm going to use a timer for the tank, because I had it all calculated and I knew that it needed changing, but I think to add an extra slice of Swiss cheese just is an extra layer of protection having the thing there, because especially when it's a high workload situation, which I wasn't expecting, right? Because I'm expecting go north wheeled and we're going to land, and here I am, 4 aircrafts in the circuit, one's waiting to join the circuit, looking out everywhere, doing go rounds unexpectedly, right? So obviously if we'd landed the first time we would have been like in a much better position, but I wasn't expecting us to go around and go around each time I was expecting to land. So yeah, I think it's really all about learning the lessons. So yeah, another lesson for my notebook, which
Yeah.
this week was destroyed, unfortunately. Well, I say destroyed, but spilt coffee
It looks like
all
it's
over
got
it.
was.
Yeah. So I'm a bit sad about that because I have history with this book. Anyways, I bought a new one, so I need to transfer all my notes.
That would take time. Handwriting it all out again.
I'm looking forward to it though, because I'm gonna get to relive almost every flight I've had so far. So
Yeah.
it'll be quite cool. Yeah, it'll be quite cool. I'm looking forward to that. Right. With that said, let's go into one of our first topics. I've decided to introduce a new topic, something that you are proud of this week. Celebration time.
Mm. Oh gosh.
Celebrate good times. Come on. Down. Yee-hoo. Do you know that song, or are you like way too young to know that song?
No, I'm not that young. I'm not an
Okay,
embryo.
no, well, well. But yeah, something to celebrate this week. Something you're proud of having done, having achieved.
I had been putting something off for a while, but I made a start on it. That's my little win this week.
Nice. Care to share? Or is it top secret?
Top secret for now.
Top secret for now. Okay, cool. So watch this space. Cool. Yeah, that's really cool. That's really good. So what made you take that step in the first place? Because I guess this is the whole topic of discussion, isn't it? How to go from saying one day I will to this is day one.
Yeah.
So yeah. So what helped you to finally take that step forward and take action?
I think it's when I commit to something, I don't want to let people down. And there was a deadline, and it was ticking. The clock was ticking, and I needed to do something about it. So that just propelled me forward. Thought that's enough. I've got to get on with it.
Mm-hmm. So having that deadline and having a sense of responsibility.
Yeah, I suppose so.
Nice.
And perfectionism as well. Got to be the
Mm-hmm.
best. Got to do the best I can.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Nice. For me, I would say it has been an insane week, and starting with last week Friday, kind of going to the Midlands and coming back, and then podcast, and then Sunday, and then work, and then BA visit, and then flight yesterday, and then supporting family, and then it's been a mad week, and my timetable has been all over the place, and somehow I'm still here. Quite proud of that. I'm surviving it so far, so yeah, I've definitely had to roll with the punches, so here I am rolling with the punches.
Well done.
So thank you.
Well, getting through it all.
Yeah, and well done to you. I wish I had sound effects now, because then we would use the applause and crowd cheering sound effect. Oh, we have imagination. That's fine.
Yeah, we'll use imagination.
Unless you have a hidden talent of
no
sound effects.
Mm-mm.
Okay, fair enough. Cool. Which brings us to our next topic: accountability time. What's one thing that you should have been doing this week that you haven't been doing? Confession time.
A few things.
Dun, dun, dun.
No.
You don't have to confess everything.
No.
Just the one.
I've just
Whichever one you want.
Up early. I tell myself I'm going early to be more productive, and I've just not been doing it this week.
Mm-hmm. How come? What's happened?
I don't know. I just fell out of my routine, and it's hard to get back into it. So.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Fairs. How do you plan on getting back onto it?
Just keep on trying.
Like it.
Even if I don't wake up at the earliest time I wanted to, say I like to get up at 8 o'clock now. That's my goal. But if because I'm used to sleeping until 1 p.m. and I keep every day wake up an hour earlier to try and get back into that routine. 11 or 10 or 9, and I'm trying to follow that.
Yeah. It's good.
What about you?
What about me?
What's something you need to be accountable for this week?
I'm perfection personified. I've been on top of my game and just perfect.
So a picture of you would appear under perfectionism in a dictionary.
Yeah, the only thing I've been not good at this week is not being perfect. That's
okay.
Okay. Seriously, what have I? Plenty. I won't lie. Plenty. I think particularly when I like my bedtime to be around 8, 9, 10 latest. But my schedule has just not allowed it. So my kind of eating habits have been out of whack, because normally I have my last bit of food between 6 and 7, then I have my last liquid before between 7 and 8, then I'm looking to go sleep somewhere between 8 and 10, and then I don't eat again until the next day, 12 p.m. But where I'm still out at 10 p.m, getting home at midnight or 1 a.m, that's been out of whack, or been busy all day, so I haven't eaten, and then so I would say that's a discipline that I kind of need to find a way of maintaining despite disruptions. So that's one thing I should have been doing that I wasn't doing this week.
How do you think you can prioritize it moving forward?
It's a good question. The first question is, do I want to prioritize it?
It should be.
Yeah, should be. That's something we'll come back to in a little while. Should be's.
Or could have changed the way.
I think probably the only way to really push that is to make sure that within the hours that I am supposed to be eating, that I do make sure I get my meal in at that time. And I think if I do that, then I don't have to. I don't feel that I have to compensate later on. Or potentially shift the hours completely. I'm just thinking about days when, I've had to wake up later and kind of stay up later. But I think those two options, either shift my day later, which is probably the harder thing to do, or the more disruptive thing to do, but yeah, the other alternative would be to make sure that within those hours, my set hours, that I do get those main meals in.
Yeah.
That's the key. All right, with that said, enough with the small talk. Let's talk about dreams. Time for dreams workshop. Right. So
You skip to the page.
this is a part where we select one dream. And if you're watching this after the fact, or if you happen to join us, it's a good little game to play. Drop your dreams in the chat or in the comments below. Like I usually say, share your dreams with as many people as you can. You don't have to share your strategy though, but your dreams, share it with as many people as you can. You never know who will help. You never know how things might work out. With that said, Dreams Workshop is a time when we select a dream, a goal that we have, and then we are in the hot seat for 90 seconds. And the other person gets to fire some questions. And those questions are aimed at one, potentially clarifying the dream, specifying certain things, or amplifying the dream, making it bigger, challenging us to think bigger, to dream bigger. Or to make it more significant, to make it more meaningful, more real. So, Miss Abby,
Me first. Or
do you want me to go first?
yeah, do you want to?
I'll rock, paper, scissors you. Ready?
We are grown adults.
Listen, we're grown adults, but sometimes we act like kids, okay?
Yeah.
I know I do, especially around kids. It's so hard. But that's why I think kids keep me young. I need kids. That's what I need in my life. Kids.
Don't go kidnapping any.
Well, I do have lots of nephews and nieces, so technically I could kidnap them, right?
No, it doesn't really count if it's family, right?
Well. Anyways, enough of thinking about breaking the law. Now, Dreams Workshop, I'm happy to go first. And since I'm speaking to an aviation engineer student, let's go with an aviation related goal. And I'm happy to talk about owning, running, having an airline. That's my goal.
Okay.
I'm going to set up. 1 second, relax, man.
Hurry up, come on.
You didn't just try to rush me. All right. Let me see. Where does this go? Okay, I'm going to have to hold it up. Right. 90 seconds. Time starts now.
Okay, so why an airline?
Because I love aviation. Because I love to have other people experience aviation. Because I would like to go to the furthest I can in aviation. And an airline is as far as I can think of right now. I'm sure if space gets into my mind, then it will be space as well.
Just imagining your own spacecraft with like D written across it going around the moon and Mars.
Listen, I might have to take over from Elon. We'll see.
X who? But yeah. Okay. What steps have you taken this year to achieve that long-term goal?
I'd say developing in aviation. That's like the immediate thing. And getting into an airline, so I know how airlines work from the inside. So yeah, I'm closer now to being an airline pilot than I was earlier this year, owing to more flying, more networking, more research, more practice. So yeah, I think I'm in a better position now than I was, say, in January this year. So
Definitely.
let's see. Time will tell. Time will tell.
Yeah, great progress. It really is.
Thanks.
Oh, that's my time up.
Time's up. Time's up. It is very fast. It is very fast.
It won't feel like
Right.
that with me. It'll feel like
Well,
forever.
well, let's find out. What goal do you want to put forward?
How big should I go? Because I could.
Up to you. Up
I don't.
to you. It's your decision.
I don't know whether to do a short-term one or a long-term one.
It doesn't matter. Whichever one that would be most useful to you.
Or useful. Okay. I want to get a scholarship that will fund the entirety of my MSc tuition fees.
Of your?
MSc tuition fees, so my postgraduate studies.
Right. Okay, cool. So funding MSc. Okay. Ready?
As ever.
Time starts now. So, okay, cool. How many scholarships are there that you know of?
One that's reliable.
Okay. One that's reliable, but how many are there?
There's enough that will cover $1 to $2 grand of the tuition fees, but there's only one that I can apply for that's fully funded.
Okay. Is a scholarship the only way you can fund it?
No, I could do GoFundMe or crowdfund, but I don't feel comfortable doing that.
Why not?
I don't like asking for things from people, and I don't think it's something people should help me out with. I feel like I'm responsible for my own.
Apart from the people that are giving you the scholarships, those are the only people that you think should help you.
Yeah, because then if they give to me, I can easily give back to them, if that makes sense.
So you don't want help from anybody that you can't give back to directly?
No, I'll take help from anyone, but the most logical way for me to apply for this, to do my course, is to get a scholarship.
And do you meet the criteria? And
Yes.
what are you going to do to stand out? Final question.
Well, I've got a personal statement and I've written it. It's just a matter of being confident enough to send it off now. Stop nitpicking. But I'd like to think I've got plenty of attributes and extracurricular activities that can boost me.
Yeah, sounds great. I usually have I found it useful. You may or may not. I found it useful to have like a team around me, whatever that team is. Usually they would know what my strategy is. They would know, or potentially could be somebody that reads through it and has a look for me, and fulfill various functions that I know I need boosting. So, do you have a team, or are you doing it alone?
I have a small team.
Great, sounds good. So you're well on your way. When do you find out if you get it?
I don't know. That's the thing. Nothing online is about it. I need to send it off, and then I can send an email asking all these questions.
Fair enough. Well, speaking of scholarships, this week I have launched. I've opened applications. I don't want to say I've launched a Future Pilot 901 scholarship, but I've opened applications for a Future Pilot 901 flying scholarship. Very exciting times, very scary times. But that's what it's all about. I think I had a chat with a couple of people, and I said to them, like, you know, they asked me, why did I do this? Why am I doing this? And I said, because I sacrificed so much to get my private pilot's license, it can be a story that I sit back on where it's like, oh yeah, when I started flying, I didn't have the money, decided to live in my 2-seater car, and that's how I put the money, and blah blah blah, and I did this fundraiser, and now I've got a private license. And that could be like the story that I always fall back on.
Mm.
And so my question to myself is more like, okay, cool, that's what you did, but what are you doing now? And obviously living in my car at the time was sufficient to freak me out, and kind of like put me at the edge of my capabilities. So the question to me was like, what can I do now that would be a new story, as opposed to falling back on an old story, which is great. It's inspiring. It's fantastic. But what am I doing now? I don't want to be a one-hit wonder. So I thought, yeah, I've always wanted to do a scholarship. So yeah, almost a year after I got a scholarship to get my private license, I'm now giving up a smaller version of a scholarship, but still, and I think it's sufficiently freaking me out for me to feel like I'm putting myself on the edge of my capability. So there you go.
It's good to feel the fear. Otherwise, you wouldn't push yourself out your comfort zone. So good on you.
Thank you. Yeah. I still don't know how it's going to work out, but again, and this is a great thing about doing it, because especially once you achieve anything, there's always people that others want to achieve, which now I've got a private license, blah, 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 progress. Like, people always ask me questions like, how do you do this? How do you do that? And you can have a lot of advice for people, but in doing something like this, I have to take my own advice, which is quite good. I enjoy like having to practice what I preach. Not quite sure where I was going to go with that, but actually I know where I was going to go with that, but I forgot. So I'm going to allow you to ask questions.
Okay. Where do you see the scholarship in 5 years' time?
I know what I was going to say now. Good question. I say to people that, sometimes trying to achieve your goal is like walking in the fog, and you can't see the whole pathway from here to your goal, but you can see the next step at the very least if you're in fog. And you take one step, and when you take that first step, the next step reveals itself, and you take that step and the next step reveals itself, and so on and so forth. And before you know it, you're much further ahead than what you could see from the beginning. So that's how I'm taking it. I don't know everything. I don't know how it's all going to work. I don't even know how I'm going to select the winners of this year's scholarship. It's kind of all hanging in the balance, but I think that's the adventure. So where could it be in 5 years' time? I would be grateful if in 5 years' time I had some very strong partnerships with established brands. I would be very grateful in 5 years' time if I could provide scholarship for multiple people, as opposed to one. And yeah, I would definitely like it to grow over that time, particularly Future Pilot 901. Not just the scholarship, because the scholarship's an offshoot of that. So there's more things within the Future Pilot 901 umbrella that I'm hoping will also develop within that time.
Yeah, I'm sure it will.
I hope so.
Yeah. I've got a list of questions, but you've kind of answered them with other questions, even though they're different. Okay. How many stages to the application are there? Because I saw in your email that for if 2 written references would be available, and that in interview. So to me, that's 3 stages: the application, references, and an interview. Would that be right?
Good question. Potentially. Okay, so potentially there will be an interview, or actually there has to be an interview. So initial application, definitely. Interview, definitely. I think at the moment, whilst the numbers are lower than they will be, and capacity is there, it will be application, interview, selection.
Okay.
When the numbers grow a little bit more, that's when I see a rationale for something like what the air pilots do, which is application, video submission, interview, selection. Now, one of the things I am hoping to do, so this year it's going to be application, then interview, and this may all change. Application, then interview, and the references are taken into consideration at the interview stage.
Okay.
Right. And then after the interview, either the selection panel decides, or we will give the decision over to the future pilot 901 and the aviation community and the public at large, give them the decision. So it may be a case where we shortlist the top 2 candidates and let the public decide.
Ooh.
Or it may be a case where the selection panel chooses the winner. Eventually, we definitely want to move to a public selection model.
Okay.
But what I didn't want to do, because I didn't have all the details, I didn't want to wait until next year, because I think that's a trick, right? You think, oh yeah, I need to figure out how I'm going to make this goal happen. So you keep on postponing it and never do it. And that's something I wanted to avoid. So I said to myself, okay, I'm starting the scholarship creation process much later than I would have, much later in the year than I would have wanted. So I'm going to make it as small as possible so I don't have an excuse of why I can't do it this year. So I don't know how much of that public selection process I'm going to do this year, but I know that's something we want to do next time for sure. But this year I may or may not do it, depending on whether it can work or not practically. So yeah, changes may happen, but potentially that's the case.
Change. Okay. That's interesting about a public selection. What makes made you think about that?
I think it's yeah, go ahead.
And not keep it internal, because that's what most companies do, don't they?
Yeah, so most companies keep their selection process kind of internal. I think it's because of my journey, right? So my journey was can't afford flying, sacrifice my comfort, live in my car, put money towards that, share my story, raise money, because I did that. I raised it's like £1,200 towards my first solo for my 30th birthday. And then further down the line got a scholarship. So for me, I found that, put it this way, because the scholarship that we're offering is quite small to start off with, it could be a hybrid kind of approach where to boost that, it's like, okay, we can only give a small amount, but actually you could open that up to people, right? And to get people invested, if they get to vote, then maybe they want to invest even more, right? But at least their vote is an investment to start off with.
Yeah.
And also it's a case where, for example, I think this concept is applied in different industries. For example, if when you go on X Factor, right, or Britain's Got Talent, do you have any ambitions to go on X Factor or Britain's Got Talent, by the way?
No.
Anyways, serious. If you go to X Factor, the thing is, you don't even have to win X Factor to get the benefit of X Factor, right? Because when you get to the semis or the final, there is so much attention that's given to you that it can set you up for recording contracts, for that kind of thing. So I think that one of the benefits of doing a public selection is that even if you don't win the scholarship, you've had that, because you, like, people in the aviation community were voting for you potentially, right? Once you're one of the top two candidates, you will be encouraging your people in your network to vote for you, which is kind of like a little investment into you,
Yeah.
right? It's not a financial investment, but it's energy. It's like them saying, you have my vote of confidence, right? And that kind of helps people to bring to, like, galvanize their network, which once you have done that, if you're unsuccessful and you want to, you could say, hey guys, unfortunately I was unsuccessful, but as you can see, I'm very committed, and if you'd consider it, I'd really appreciate if you could support me. And maybe then they could do their own fundraiser off the back of that, you know? So it kind of gives them options. Or they can leverage it in whatever way. I'm very big on like leveraging what you have to get to where you need to get to, you know? And there's many kind, generous people that are willing to support, but they're willing to support people who are serious, where they know that their investment won't be wasted and that it's going to make a real difference. And I think that's the feeling that I tried to give people when I was fundraising, to say, like, actually, whatever you do invest is going to make a huge difference, and I'm 100% committed to making that dream happen. So yeah, ended up really well. So that's the kind of thinking behind it.
Yeah, I see your logic.
And also, it makes it different from all the other scholarships. Hopefully that's going to be a good marketing point for me.
Yeah, it should be, and I think it will. Have you
Yeah,
had?
and the other thing that distinguishes it, as you mentioned to me, like, before off the episode, that, you know, most, if not all, the other scholarships are primarily for flying hours and not necessarily for equipment or, you know, anything like that. So I guess that's another thing that does distinguish Future Pilot 901 Flying Scholarship to the other ones, because yeah, a proportion of the scholarship award can be used for essential equipment.
Yeah. I still
All
stand.
right.
Yeah.
Say that again.
I still stand by that. I've still researched for other scholarships, and it's all towards flight training or gliding, nothing to help with the associated costs with flying, not the actual doing it. But yeah, do we have time for a few more questions, or
A final question, and then we'll have our main topic of the day.
okay? So how will you determine whether a candidate is serious enough? Do you think that's what the references should be for?
I mean, references could show seriousness, yeah. But I think most importantly, references are a test of authenticity, right? Not necessarily seriousness. I think those two are very different, right? Because if you have, just like if I come to you right now and I hold up a badge that says, you know, Metropolitan Police, right? In essence, that badge is a reference that says I am who I say I am, and, you know, that I've been vetted a certain way, and been certified, or like have been found to be of a satisfactory level to be able to have that, right? And so you can then trust me off the basis of that badge, right? So it's just one way to kind of prove authenticity. Because I don't know everyone that's going to be applying. I don't know where they come from. I may not have met them ever. in my life. So it's like, how do I know you are who you say you are, right? So I guess like the references kind of fill that authenticity part, and it can show seriousness, but I don't think that's a primary function. I think the seriousness comes through in other ways.
Examples?
And I don't think you can fake this. Right. Okay. I'll give you my story as an example. If I apply for any scholarship and I say, okay, cool, I want to be a pilot. Cool, great. And I say, what am I proud of achieving? Okay, or whatever. I will use one of the questions to kind of show my seriousness, right? And I'll say, okay, I wanted to be a pilot so much, but I couldn't afford it. So I decided to live in my car. And I did that for the last 7 months. And I started a YouTube channel and an Instagram channel where I documented my journey. And I ended up living in my car for the best part of 7 months in total, and also slept on my aunt's couch for the next 2 years. And you can see that. And that's one of the reasons why one of the first things I did was start a Instagram page and the YouTube channel, because then it's documented, it's there, you can see it. And people like yourself knew me from when I was living in my car. That shows seriousness. It's within my story, right? So it comes across in how I answer the questions and what I say, the content that I give. I think an important part is, what have you sacrificed? What have you given up to pursue your dream? Because having experienced that, like, there are things you can give up. There are things you can sacrifice. There are things you can do to prove your seriousness. And I don't think that proving your seriousness is even something that you need to do for other people. Like, me living in my car was mostly about proving it to myself that I'm willing to see this through, So I think people should want to show themselves how serious they are. And it's not necessarily even a case about showing it to other people. And when you can show yourself that ask yourself the question, what can I do to really show myself that I'm serious about achieving this? And if you can answer that question for yourself, you can answer that question for any application.
Yeah.
So don't try to impress the selection panel who are running the application that you're doing. Like, try and impress yourself first. And if you can impress yourself, there's a good chance you can impress somebody else, because you're probably the harshest critic of yourself, right? So if you can overcome that internal criticism of yourself and impress yourself, then there's a good chance you can impress somebody else. So I would say that should be the focus. And everyone should answer it for themselves, and the answers would differ. Not everyone who's serious about flying has to live in their car. That's not the only way to show your seriousness. That will apply and be different for each person. I know somebody, for example, who said, that they're not going to go to university, they're going to get a job, they're going to pursue it, and that's how they're showing their seriousness, or at least a significant part of it, to the point where they're and not for the lack of grades, but are willing to not go any other direction other than this, and they're making progress. So yeah, that's what I'd say. Great questions, fantastic.
Thank you for answering them.
No, my absolute pleasure. Having said that about seriousness, let's talk about this. So I shared with you a video by the legendary Eric Thomas. And that video is the famous viral guru story. If you haven't seen the guru story, just pause this episode if you're watching this back. If you're not watching this back and you're watching it live, you better not come off this podcast episode. I'll just tell you about it. But yeah, after the episode, if you're watching live, go and watch the guru story, Eric Thomas. But yeah, if you're watching playback, then pause it, go watch the story and come back. what impression did it have on you watching that?
Wow. Well, I watched it with my notebook and I picked out some quotes that just really hit me, that kind of makes you start out rewiring your thinking. And just everything he said was so true when you put it all into perspective. Yeah.
So give me one. What's the first thing that hit you?
The first one was, if you want to succeed as much as you want to breathe, then you'll be successful.
Cool. 1 second. So let me just break that down. Or retell that. So essentially, he tells a story about this guy who wants to be successful, and this is quite a famous story. So I wouldn't be surprised if most people have heard it already. But it talks about this guy that wants to be successful, and he goes to this guru, and the guru says, "Okay, you want to be successful? Come and meet me tomorrow, 4 a.m." So okay, cool, fine, at the beach. Now shows up at the beach, is like wearing a suit. It's like, okay, I'm here, show me how to be successful. And the guru says, okay, step in the water. And the guy's like, what do you mean step? I feel like I'm here for like, I want to be successful. I don't want to learn how to swim. Like, okay, you want to be successful, right? Like I am. Okay, cool. The guru says, step in the water. So he steps into the water and then it goes knee deep. And it's like, come a little bit further, waist deep. And it says, okay, come a little bit more, neck deep. And then he does something that isn't necessarily ethical, but it's just a story. But he takes his head and puts his head in the water and holds his head down. And of course, like most people do, you get a buildup of, well, one, you're panicked. Two, you get a buildup of CO2 and you're like trying to fight to breathe, right? And then anyways, before the guy has any kind of major medical issue, the guru lets him up. And of course, what does the guy do? After all that battling and blah, 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 it comes up, takes a deep breath. It says, okay, cool. When I was holding your head down, what did you want to do? And he said, I wanted to breathe. I said, okay, cool. Well, when you want to be successful, as bad as you wanted to breathe just then you'll be successful. Obviously, I can't tell it as good as Eric Thomas, but I think I got pretty close in my description. So make sure you still watch that. But essentially, that's what Abby's talking about. So now tell us, why did that stand out for you?
Because I had just never thought about wanting something that badly in that way before. If that makes sense. I don't know.
Mm-hmm. So I like to use it as a measurement. Again, like, I think you asked a good question about the scholarship. Like, how do you show you're serious? And I think the answer that I gave has been literally my thinking for the last 4 years at least, which is I like to assess my seriousness, right? Tony Robbins has this really cool quote that really cool saying. He says, like, most people don't get their shoulds. You know, when you're like, oh yeah, I should probably go and do some exercise. Oh yeah, I should probably like try and be more social. Oh yeah, I should probably study. I should, right? And he says, like, we don't do our shoulds, we do our musts. We do the things that we must, right? In life, you don't get your shoulds, you get your must. For example, if I use that guru story example, at that point, it's I must breathe. Like, there's no should here. Maybe I could, and it would be good if I did. Or no, it's like if I don't breathe, I'm dead. Like, I have to, I must breathe, right? And so he makes the point that until something becomes a must, you're never really going to do it. And I think that's why I decided to live in my car, because I was like, if I'm in my car and I'm uncomfortable and I remember, why am I here in the first place? Because I want to be a pilot. Okay, cool. Then I will put myself in a position where I must make progress because I'm so uncomfortable.
Yeah.
right? And my discomfort reminds me to make the progress. And I'm like, oh man, do you know what? Let me just make some progress. So at least there's some meaning behind this discomfort. And so I always assess my level of seriousness. And one of the kind of measuring sticks that I use is the guru story. And I go to myself, okay, cool. You say you want to do this, but do you want it as bad as you want to breathe? Now, can you want everything as bad as you want to breathe? Probably not. What do you think?
There's limit. I don't.
Right. Right. I would agree. It's like I can't want to relax as bad as I want to breathe and then want to like be a pilot as bad as I want to breathe, but also want to run an airline as bad as I want to breathe. And like it's not really like I find that I've had to prioritize like what's my main goal. And that's what I want to do as bad as I want to breathe. And everything else serves that main goal. But I think it's like I have to know what my main goal is. Because energy is finite.
Yeah.
So what's the thing in your life that you've wanted the most? Have you ever experienced that?
In the past month, I think I have.
Okay, tell more, pray tell. As much as you can. Can you tell us more?
When you experience grief, well, when I did, my whole perspective on life changed. Like, like so I have watched some of your other podcasts, and I remember you saying once like progress, it should be a must. It needs from a need to a must, and that experience kind of made me think that as well. I don't know how to.
Took you from a should to must.
Yeah.
Must do what?
I must do better. Must do work, not just sit around and wait for the ducks to line up like you said once, because that doesn't happen. You actually have to work for success. So if you want to change, you need to act on it.
Yeah, for sure. And that reminds me of what Jim Rohn says. Like, people make changes in their life for one or two reasons: inspiration or desperation. And he says, so if you're not inspired today, I hope a wagon comes up your rut and makes you desperate. Do you know what I mean? And I think similarly, the thing that pushed me over the edge, I would say, is pain and frustration. It wasn't like there was a sprinkling of inspiration, yeah, but that inspiration was always there, but I still didn't do it. But then when you mixed with the pain of a childhood dream not fulfilled, that is what really pushed me over the edge. And now there's no question, you know. It's like I'll die before I stop trying to be a pilot. Well, airline pilot, let's say. And yeah, so there's it's like there's no question. Like, it doesn't matter how sick I get if I'm flying. It doesn't matter how much I don't understand a certain theoretical concept. It doesn't, like, there's no question in my head. Like, I just have to figure it out. There's no question of like, am I made for it or not? Like, I know I'm much slower than most people. Like, you probably have more aptitude than me when it comes to becoming a pilot. I'm sure you do. I'm not nowhere near as my grades are not as wondrous as yours.
Grades aren't everything.
Yeah, but there are something. then they're not everything. You're right, but they are something. They're definitely not nothing.
They are if you don't have common sense to go with it.
They're not everything. I can agree with you. Your grades are not everything. I agree with you. but they are something. And sometimes like I might not be the quickest to pick up a concept, but I will like do everything, like come up with all sorts of tricks to get it. And once I get it, that's it, like game over. but yeah, I think it's on this journey I've kind of learned myself a bit more as well, and how I function, and that I don't function like other people, and that's okay. And yeah, they might get it before me, that's fine, but when I get it, like and I think that it's the similar concept with like the scholarships. It's like I think we all think differently, and you should like trust your dream and your calling kind of thing, because it's like there's no other scholar from who won the scholarship last year that's looking to give a scholarship this year. I ain't seen it.
I haven't.
So it took me 4 years to actually get the scholarship, but as soon as I got it, that's it, like game changer, everything switches. And I feel like that with knowledge as well. Back to the guru story. What's the other things that you picked out from that?
So there's 2 more quotes. I'm not sure if this is exactly what he said word for word, but it was something about don't cry to give up, cry to keep going. Is that right?
That is a direct quote. See, I've listened to that same story like plenty of times, so I recognize every word of what you say. That is a direct quote. That is, yeah. Tell me, what does that concept do for your mind?
It was deep. That hit me. I thought the amount of times I've wanted to give up and I've cried, but I haven't given up. I'm like, maybe if I thought about crying to keep going back then, I wouldn't have been so hard on myself, or the situation would have been different. I'd have handled it better. Yeah, it just hit home. Yeah. And that's the thing that we don't realize. Like, whatever path you take is going to be hard. It's going to have challenges. Like, whether you go for it or you don't go for it, you're going to face challenges. So if you're going to face those challenges, you might as well face those challenges on the path to progress rather than those challenges running away from progress. And that to me is the same concept. Like, either way, you're probably going to cry for some reason. But instead of crying because you never tried, you might as well, if you're going to cry and keep going. Like, cry to keep going. Let your, yeah. I'm going to take it. I think I might know the next quote that you're going to say, but let's see if I'm right. You want to guess? See, I've got it on the tip of my tongue. So this one is, don't cry to give up, cry to keep going. It's the obvious one. Gone. In logical order from the video. Yeah, I don't know if I've got the logical order. I mean, the most obvious one could be the one where he talks about something along the lines of, don't let who you are today get in the way of who you could be, or you have to be willing to let who you are today go for who you could be. That's the obvious one, but I don't think that's the one. Is that the one? Do you want me to read it out? Yes, please. Yeah. Sacrifice what you are for what you could be. Yeah. And why did that stand out to you? I don't know, but it's I don't know. It just hits home again. I think. I don't know. On the spot, I can't think. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, I do like that concept. I think sometimes we can hold on
to the way that we do things, and this is the way I do things, and this is the way, this is the time I usually wake up. And like the amount of people I hear saying like, oh, I'm not a morning person, I'm not like, and to some degree, like, I don't care about those things. Like, the thing is, human beings, we're so adaptable, right? And we adapt to whatever situation you put us in. Now, yeah, we do still have our tendencies, and that is a limitation on how much adaptation we can do, or we can make. But largely, if you go to a different country and the time is a different time zone, if you're there long enough, your body clocks will adjust to that new time zone, right? If you move to a different climate, generally after some time, your body would adjust to that different climate. It's incredible to me because, like, I used to live in Mombasa, which is in the south east coast, or the southern side of Kenya. And the average temperature there is probably 26, 27 degrees. At the very least, probably 30 average temperature, right? All year round. And now when I go back there, I mean, all I have to do is just blink and I'm sweating. Like that's like, yeah. All I have to do is just take a few steps, blink, breathe, I'm sweating buckets, right? But when I was living there, that wasn't the case. But now that I'm been living in the UK, like average temperatures massively lower than Kenya, my body's kind of adapted now, not fully, but quite adapted to UK weather,
Yeah.
Like 15 degrees feels like, ooh, like this is warmth. Like this is getting super warm. Like, yeah. 30 degrees now, which was like absolutely normal back then when I was a kid. Now it's like, whoa, like this is heat wave. That's just normal every day, but we call it heat wave. So yeah, we adapt to whatever situation we're in, and sometimes we hold back from putting ourselves in new situations because of an idea of what we are. So no, I'm not a morning person, so you don't put yourself in that situation, so you never really adapt. But my whole question, or at least how I try to challenge myself, is to say, what do I need to become to achieve this dream? And whoever I thought I am, gotta try and let that, like, see how much I can let that go. And it's an experiment.
Yeah.
But I think that's a great quote to pick up. So what do you think that's going to change for you going forward as we wrap up the episode?
Oh my gosh. I think
listen, let me just say this, like, I did do some kind of really cool things when I was around about your age. So I bear that in mind in what I'm about to say. But I think, like, you're in such a good position at your age. How old are you?
20.
Mate. Yeah, you're in such a good position for where you are. Like, the fact that you're exposed to these ideas at your age, I wish that was the case for me. Again, I did some very cool stuff when I was at that age. So, but I do feel like the world changing, social media being available more than what it was before, access to information, all of that, like being able to be part of these communities and being involved with this company, that company, being, you're in a really good position. And as you kind of develop, a lot of things will click into place. And so, like, don't put too much pressure on yourself to have everything figured out. Well, even I don't have things figured out. But yeah, don't, like, it's enough to just say, I find that inspiring. I don't know why, but I find that inspiring, and, like, don't feel no way about it. Do you know what I mean? Like, time in time, things will reveal themselves even more. So yeah, you're in a good position.
Yeah,
I would have been pleased to be where you are at your age.
I am. I'm grateful for everything that's happened in the past year that's just helped me see what I need to do better, and I'm definitely more fortunate than some, and I'm lucky to even be this far into my aviation journey, even though I've not really practically done it in years. It's still progress. But
100%, 100%, 100%. And yeah, to wrap up, I think, yeah, if you haven't watched the Guru story, make sure you go out and watch that. I think it's an amazing, inspirational message. And if you can watch it every day, then watch it every day. Because, yeah, sometimes that's what I do. I kind of alternate the different videos that I watch every day. But it's really about training your mind to think differently. Because to get what you don't have, you have to become more than what you are. And so developing ourselves, developing our minds is a key part of trying to achieve the dreams and the goals that we have. And I think, yeah, it's a very hard-hitting speech. There are some really good gems in there, which you've rightfully picked out. And I think at the end of the day, if you want to stand out, if you want to be successful, you have to stand out, whatever you're doing. If you're applying for a scholarship, you have to stand out to be selected as the winner. If you are delivering a product, you have to stand out compared to the other products for people to buy your product. If you're offering a service, you have to stand out. Your service has to stand out to be different than all the other services for people to choose your service. So whatever you're doing, there's always an element of having to stand out. And I think one of the ways to stand out is to be all in, is to make progress not a should, but make it a must. Is to put yourself in uncomfortable positions and decide that there is no way back. There's only like put yourself against the wall. The Rock, Dwayne Johnson talks about it, where your back every day, his back is against that wall, and progress is the only way forward. Or moving forward is the only way to progress. So put yourself in that situation and hopefully make progress and see you guys at the top. Final words before we close. Obviously, today we haven't had the awesome steady athlete Mo because he's away making his dream happen, achieving his goals with activity kids. Next week, I am away. So Mr. Mo, the steady athlete, is going to be joined by Max, who's been on the podcast before during my birthday episode. It's going to be Mo and Max running the Day One Mentality podcast. So I'm going to be off. And then I'll be back the week after, and it's going to be the usual team. So I'm looking forward to that. But yeah, I can't wait to see the episode next week. I'm sure it's going to be fire because I like the way those two guys think. And I definitely find them motivational and inspirational. But for today, I've been joined by the wonderful Aileron Abbey. And I have to say, I do find you inspiring. I think you do a lot. I think you work very hard, and despite the challenges that you face, you're still making progress. And yeah, I feed off of any kind of positive vibes, and particularly when people go against the grain, I like to feed off of that because that's what I'm trying to do, and I see that in what you're doing. So thank you very much for stepping in for Mo, and thank you for sharing your story and your journey and the bits. And obviously you shared a little bit here. I know a lot more than we've shared in this podcast. So maybe one day people will see the interviews I've done with you and all of that, and they'll get to know what I'm talking about. But yeah, from a personal point of view, thank you. And yeah, hope you've enjoyed being on the episode.
I have. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. Well, that's it, folks. Whatever you do, whatever your goals are, whatever you do this week, one, Make sure you tune into the Day One Mentality podcast next week. It's going to be fire. And until next time, it's Future Pilot 901, reminding you to live your dreams. Peace.
Should I do me? What am I? No, I haven't prepared.
You need to figure out an outro. You have to figure out an outro one day. Don't worry. One day you'll figure it out.
Oh, I'm
and
able and feel the fear and do it anyway.
Oi, I love it. Feel the fear and do it anyway. Couldn't have said it better myself. All right, people. Peace.